the world crisis today is very different from the previous crisis I have been involved as an actor. I've been a passive actor in a few more, but as an active individual in this world, I've been active in 1973 in the first oil shock, in 1979 in the second oil shock, the post-mortem, which is the debt crisis of Latin America for 5 years, the Asian crisis, and now this crisis. These are crises that I have lived, that nobody will tell me exactly what happened. I know what happened. The issue is that the first four are very different from this one. And there are 2 or 3 points of difference before we see whether this will benefit the poor or not, or whether capitalism is going to disappear. One is that this is a collective crisis. This is not an individual crisis. That is to say, we need collective instruments and collective solutions. And we are not proposing collective instruments and collective solutions. Why? Because we have not self-realized collective values like solidarity, interdependence, equity, and so on, which are fundamental in addressing a collective crisis. Secondly, we don't have the mechanism to create collective wealth and collective distribution of wealth. And third, we don't have organizations that are collective. The World Bank is not collective. Chile, the United States, Spain, China, they act on their own self-interest in that organization. They don't have a collective view, the right collective view of humanity. The IMF is not collective. The World Trade Organization, the United Nations is not collective, although it's more closer, it's closer to being collective than anyone else. The United States in the United Nations act as an independent nation, representing its own interest and its own ways of doing, and will claim and fight and negotiate. So what do we need in order to address this crisis of today is to find new collective instruments and new forms of collective interaction that will enable us to resolve this issue. The traditional instrument, more consumption, more trade, more growth, will not work. This is something that I have seen in many places of the world. Maybe we need to grow less. Maybe we don't have capacity to grow more. Secondly, in terms of poor countries and poor people, and rich countries and rich people, we cannot tell the developing world that the yardstick of their future is to become a United States. This is not possible. There are no resources. It's culturally not possible. And my friends, it's not desirable. Material transformation is only one aspect of our life, and material transformation cannot go on its own road without a spiritual transformation. So we are promoting a solution to the world crisis in a model of highly materially oriented and very little identity spiritually oriented. And this is chaotic when it comes to the collective. Amartya Sen, wrote this book on development as freedom. He didn't say development as consumption, development as technology, development as production, development as this, that, or the other. This title alone, by Amartya Sen, opens up a great deal of questions as to how we will come out of this crisis. And I think the poor will certainly come worse off. Finally, in relationship to whether the crisis means the end of capitalism, I think the crisis raises a big opportunity to discuss attributes of capitalism that are not working. I don't want to say we are building the coffin of capitalism, because capitalism without a surname doesn't mean much. Capitalism means capital. We need capital. The question is, what form of capital will get us where we want to go after this crisis? And I'm saying traditionally man-made capital, like physical capital, financial capital, will not do. The world will come out of this crisis expanding institutional capital, human capital, cultural capital, and spiritual capital. This is the opportunity to shift into a form of collective existence, accumulating this form of capital. Remember that poverty, one of the key elements of poverty, is an inability to accumulate capital. So we need to see what forms of capital are in the hands of the poor so the poor can come out of poverty. And it's not money that will make the poor, come out of poverty, although money help. Physical capital help, but what really will bring out is those forms of capital that are abundant for the poor, which are their value, their identity, their human horsepower, and their spirituality.